Okay, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقال رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. This part of the Battle of Hunayn is probably the most intriguing for me, simply because of the fact that it's really about the way that Muhammad sallam deals with the new converts into Islam, as well as the Hawazin tribe, the people that he just beat. And it's also interesting to see the reaction of the Muslims that became Muslims in the early days with him, because there were a few situations that kind of like put them through a test. And when I go through the story, you'll begin to understand how we face these kind of situations every day, and in terms of when it comes to our relationship between dunya and the akhirah. Because I really feel that the Sahabi were put into a very difficult choice until Muhammad sallam had to make it very clear. So really, when you think about this event, so just to kind of give a recap from some of the guys who haven't listened. So the Battle of Hunayn was, number one, it was the last battle that Muhammad sallam participated in. This was the last, so we're coming towards the end of his life. But the Battle of Hunayn was about two major cities, Makkah and Taif. They're the most powerful cities in the whole of Arabian Peninsula. Think of it like, I don't know, London, obviously, maybe Leeds or Manchester, one of them. Two powerful cities, rivalry cities. So he's already taken Makkah clean, not blood that was spilled. There was a few skirmishes, but when we say blood not spilled, we're talking about 10,000 Muslim soldiers go in and there's no warfare. Then he goes for Taif. And when he goes for Taif, he didn't anticipate what they were prepared for, because the people of Taif were a huge, massive, big tribe. They're a sort of combination of various tribes around that region. Anyway, you guys, you can sit over there if you want. It makes it easier. So anyway, when Muhammad sallam had taken the army, he obviously got ambushed by these Muslims. So the first lesson that we learned was how, when the Muslims saw their number from Makkah, they were very impressed by their number. For the very first time, the believing Muslims who came from Medina, they were like, wow, we are 12,000 strong. Who's going to beat us now? So the first thing that came into their mind was like, our numbers are so big, there is no doubt that we're going to win. So that arrogance, what you've done here psychologically, what we do every single day, is that we take the edge away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. See, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this universe establishes a relationship between you and me. He says, I'm the controller. You have the freedom to choose as you like. You can think what you want. You can have the intention and you can perform the action. But the result of your action is in my control. So you can have a 10,000 army. You can have a 20,000 army. You can have the whole world against one man. But not unless Allah wills it, you will not beat them or defeat them. And so we know this from a dua that is made when we say, when you hear in the khutbah, if the whole world comes against you and they try to take you away from Islam, doesn't matter what they do, if they try to beat you, torture you, kill you, whatever, torture your family, they will not be able to do that unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills it. And if the whole world comes against you to make you Muslim, they wouldn't even be able to bribe you. They would not even be able to sell you to make you become Muslims. So as a result of that, Allah Ta'ala is making a very clear statement here that I'm in control. So that first was a mistake. So Allah Ta'ala mentions in the Quran that you thought that you had the numbers that you'll win. So what happens? So when they go into the battle and they go to fight, there's like 12,000 Muslims, and they walk into a valley and they get completely ambushed. When they get ambushed, so they have a little, probably about a 10-20 minute fight. They're fighting, the arrows start coming from the enemies. And can you imagine, Muhammad is left on his own and all 10,000 run the other direction. The only people that stayed with him are 100 Muslims. And they were only 100 because Muhammad asked him to come back. Only 100 asked him to come back. Now you tell me, 100 versus 20, they would say between 24 to 35,000, because they were at least double the army. They were up on the mountains, they're on the ground, they were attacking from all over the place. By the time the Muslims came back to find out what happened, Muhammad had already defeated the army. So the lesson they learned was, it doesn't matter about your numbers, it doesn't matter what the situation is. Allah Ta'ala saying here is, when you think about the reality of life, if you come up against difficult situations, you have to remember, because the way that the universe works, the way the laws of the universe work, you are only in control of what you think and what you do. The result of your action cannot possibly be in your control. It goes into the laws of the universe. And that laws of the universe is in the hands of Allah. That's what He controls. So you should always have the belief in Allah in any circumstance. You could have huge numbers, you could have small numbers. The outcome will always be with Allah. That is why we always say to, and especially for the youngsters, when you go for interviews, when you go for jobs, when you go for exams, don't have arrogance. Don't think because I've studied all day long. Don't think because, you know, I've been training for an MMA fight that I'm going to win my fight. All results are in the hands of Allah. You could be the best and the strongest, and Allah can destroy you. And we've seen that in history. We've seen this from the strongest leaders, the strongest armies, the strongest people, the smartest of people, and Allah Ta'ala has not given the outcome that you would expect. And so this was a lesson that was taught to them. But what was great about all of this was when Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam defeated them, it was the number, it was the booty that they gained, the wealth. So in the history of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, so 24 years from the time he became a prophet, right up until this point, they've had loads of different skirmishes. They fought the Jews in Khaybar. That was a very big win. They beat the Quraysh twice at Badr and the Battle of Uhud. They've had many different skirmishes where they've gained something. But this was the most profitable. Many of the scholars say the number, if you look at the assets, you would think the equivalent number would be the amount of money that they gained from this war in terms of what was left was equivalent to about 200 million, 300 million, right, dollars. That's how much money they made, okay? So I'll give you an idea. In those days, a red camel is like literally a Mercedes-Benz. It's the most expensive camel that you can get. So when the Battle of Hunayn happened, the leader, Malik ibn Awf, he thought he would be clever and decided, if Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's taken all these tribes, he's beaten the Jews who were the superpower, he's beaten he's beaten all of the other various tribes in Najd, just outside of Medina and around on the west side. Now he's taken Makkah without even a fight. What do you think is going to happen to us? So the only way we can prevent him, put everything on the line. So he said to the men, you come, but bring your wives, bring your children, and all your money and your livestock. You know why? Because if you start losing, you're not going to run and leave them. You have to stay and fight to the end. That's what he thought was the motivation. So this is what happened was Allah gave Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the Muslims a gift. He thought, I'll bring the money to you. And then he won. So if you just imagine, they captured just from the women and the children, 6,000. And the livestock was numerous, absolutely numerous. And just to give you an idea, Safwan bin Umayyah was one of the Quraysh that resisted becoming a Muslim when they took over Makkah. He was like, oh, I don't want to become Muslim. I want to think about it. But he was super wealthy, right? He was one of the millionaires in Makkah. He was the one that Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam went to say, I need to borrow your weapons. If you don't mind, I want to take a loan. So Safwan bin Umayyah was like, okay, you now become the leader and the king of Makkah. Are you asking me or are you telling me I have to do it? Because obviously now you're the king, right? You're the leader, whatever they want to call it. And Muhammad said, no, I'm asking you, can I loan? And I will pay every penny back. Because remember, in that region, the Persians, the Romans, the Yemens, all the kings, they're called the Tubbans, Khosrow, Caesar, the Abyssinian Negus, all of these kings and queens and leaders were greater than their subjects, and they can demand whatever they want, raise the taxes they want, take whatever they want, and you can't have any question. Hey, they can take your children, they can take your wife, and you can't say nothing. And here's Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, one of the most powerful men, who's saying, I'm not above the law. Allah is my God, Lord, and Allah sets the law, and that law I have to abide by as well. And that means if I take a loan from you, I have to return it to you. And that was the attitude. And this made Safwan bin Umayyah think, okay, that's a bit awkward, because I've never been in a situation where a king is, just asking me politely and then guarantee my money back. So when Safwan did give all his goods, and Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam took all that, and they went to war, this is where Safwan bin Umayyah, he says, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave me 4 months to become a Muslim. But after the battle, he said that the booty that the Muslim was distributing, and I'll talk about it in a little bit more detail. He goes, the booty he kept on giving me. He goes, I was staring up at a mountain, and this mountain was huge. And there was, because obviously when the war happened, the animals running all over the place, the livestock are up on the mountain. And he was looking, thinking, look at those beautiful red camels, look at the sheep, look at this, that. And he was looking and staring, thinking, wow, that's like probably 6, 7, 8 million there, right? And so Muhammad goes to Safwan bin Umayyah and says, oh, by the way, the war's done. I'm going to return your goods. There's been some damages. I'm going to pay you back. And so I was just looking at the mountain. He's just like fixed at that. So Muslim says to him, you like what you see? He says, yeah. He goes, you can have it. It's yours. Take it. So for Safwan bin Umayyah, it wasn't the fact that he gave him the money. The attention now become on Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says, what kind of man who has nothing himself would give me all of this when he actually needs it more than anyone else, him and his people? The only kind of person would do something like that is a person who is truly detached from this dunya and is only wishing of the akhirah. Now you've got to ask yourself the question, if you had £1,000 left in your bank account and there was someone who was desperate for that money, would you be willing to give that all up for that person? If it was the only last £3,000 you had and you had to go for Umrah Hajj, yeah, because you wanted to please Allah, would you be willing to just sacrifice all your holidays and everything else and kids' tuition, spend that money and go? It's about how far you as a human are willing to push the limit and the boundary to satisfy Allah. Because remember, Islam is all about rankings. Everyone, and the ranking starts from the lowest level of hell, moves its way up 7 layers, then into paradise and 7 layers above that. Which one are you? So everyone is trying to get there. So when the booty was being distributed, what was happening was Muhammad sallallahu was giving the booty. Now you imagine all the Quraysh there, he was giving the booty to all of these doubters that turned up to the war. Because when Muhammad sallallahu came, there were 2,000 of the Quraysh we're talking literally 15 days from the time he conquered Makkah to now when he has his battle. He has 10,000 hardcore, solid Muslims. You know why? Because they're the ones who became Muslim when it was unpopular to become Muslim. They became Muslim when it was a situation that if they found out you were Muslim, your family, your business, everything you owned will be at risk. It was unfavorable. So they were up against the odds and they became Muslim purely on belief of Allah and the fact that they wanted the reward in Akhirah. But everyone after that, they came in for the money, right? People do. So when they came to this war, they say many of the women came from Makkah as well, only because they knew if Muhammad ﷺ beat us, he's definitely going to beat the Taif people. And the women of Taif have loads of jewelry and gold and so forth. And so they wanted to think, okay, we can grab that. So when they came and the war happened, I mentioned when the scuffle occurred, they ran. They didn't just run. They actually were happy. They were shouting out at the back, saying, guess what? Muhammad's magic's not going to work today. Guess what? Finally, Muhammad's defeated. Yeah, we got rid of him. And then they were shocked when they found out that he had beaten the whole army. So even then, Muhammad ﷺ started to distribute all of this wealth out to them, right? It was going out. So a very interesting thing happened. So you've got the Hawazin tribe and the Hunayn. So these are the people that he fought. Now, some of them became Muslim. The rest were captured, right? So let's park them to the side. Then you've got all of the Quraysh. And in the Quraysh, there are various tribes from Makkah. The Banu Salim, Banu Tamim, they've got the Quraysh, they've got all Ghatafan were there. They've got so many different various tribes, okay? And all of a sudden, Muhammad ﷺ starts issuing out all of this booty to the doubters. Everyone gets a piece. So all the doubters, or maybe the fake converts, you could call them, who were very weak and just came for the money, all the way down to the Muhajirun. So people like Abu Bakr Siddiq, Umar bin Khattab, they were given slaves, they were given some booty, not as much. Muhammad gave more to the weaker and the doubters, except for one group got absolutely nothing. And they were the Ansar. Now just think for a second, the Ansar, right? These are the people who are from Medina. They were the people that took in Muhammad ﷺ when the whole world, and I'll say the whole world because that was Muhammad ﷺ's world, right? And the whole world wanted to kill him. When nobody else would protect him, only the Ansar came forward, risked their lives, put their families in front and everything else to give Muhammad ﷺ protection. And they sat back and it was upsetting them. Just imagine you are with, it's like, you're with like in the movies, you'll like be looking after your mother and your father, right? Or your father's on his deathbed, and all of a sudden he gives all the wealth out to all his friends who were just users and abusers, etc. And you're sitting there thinking, I looked after him day and night, right? You wouldn't be human, right? If you didn't want something part of the dunya. That's human. There's nothing wrong with that. You understand? Even the best of us, right, would not say no. But it's almost feels like it's not necessarily about the money, but you feel like, but didn't I do something for you? We have those situations. You have friends, you take them out, you look after them. All of a sudden he has a birthday party and he doesn't invite you, or he goes out for a big meal, or he gets married and you don't get invited. You're like, mate, I helped you out. I helped you with your job. I helped you with your family. You don't invite me. It kills you, right? You get really, really upset by this. So they were really feeling this. They were getting really upset by this situation. And so comments started to come out. Now, just to give you an idea, these are the kind of people that got wealth. Abu Sufyan was one of them. So Abu Sufyan ibn Harb, he was one of the leaders of the Quraysh. He was given, so these people were given 100 camels. So 100 camels would be roughly about what? Probably consider $5 million each, straight off the back, right? Where was Abu Sufyan in that battle? He sat at the back. He didn't want to fight. He was so-called Muslim, but didn't want to get involved. He was kind of hoping that maybe Muslim will lose. He gets 100 camels. Then who gives it? Suhail bin Ibn Amr, another Qurayshi. He gets 100 camels. Hakim ibn Hizam, yeah? This is Abu Jahl's son. He's given another. He's another one who was against Islam. Safwan bin Ibn Umayyah, the one I just talked about, who loaned the money, loaned all his weapons. Then there was Hunayn ibn Hisham. This guy, yeah, he's from the Ghatafan tribe. He's a very serious, weird character, right? He's like very arrogant. He was like, I'll give you an idea. When they went to seize Taif, we took 2 weeks ago, we talked about when they went to seize Taif, he was the one that he said, let me go to the people of Taif and let me see if I can get them to surrender. He walks in and he says to them, don't get scared by Muhammad burning down the trees. Yeah. Keep your wits by you. He comes back out. Muslim said, what did you say to them? He said, I said to them, accept the messenger of God and accept Allah. There's no way out. He goes, why are you lying? I know exactly what you said. And he knew, so in his heart, he knew that, look, Muhammad was a messenger. He was a Muslim. But the problem is, when somebody converts, even if you take a Jahil Muslim and you start teaching Islam, you don't expect him to start praying 5 times a day the next day, or fasting, or start behaving themselves. It's a slow progress, right? It's a slow progress. And this is a very serious point. I was having this conversation, I think, with Haroon, and we were saying that when you get to this age, right, 49, 50 years old, we don't have much to look forward to, okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes away our age. He takes away our youth. If we're earning good money, even if I buy a Lamborghini, right, what am I going to do with it when I don't have my youth? I got nothing. Even if I wanted to commit haram, I haven't got anything to really do it with, right? So when you get to this age, you have children, you have your wife, you have bills to pay. So what is left? So slowly your own body is demising and it's going. But I said, the only thing then you've got left, because Muhammad said, the average age of my ummah is 60. Take the variance on either side, 10%. As soon as you hit what we say 50, 60 to 70, we call this the kill zone. This is the time where Muhammad already stated. So this is the area where we begin to worry. Now, depending on how we have been building ourselves up over the last 20 years, if I've been praying in the last 20 years 5 times a day, then guess what? The only thing I've got to look forward to is going to Allah. So the only thing I've got to do is just top up my Islam, do the extra sunnah. If I've already been fasting every month of Ramadan for the last 20 years, then all I've got to do is start topping up by going to Taraweeh or doing the extra nafil or finishing the Quran during the month of Ramadan. But you know, I've been doing that for the last 20 years. Then that's easy for me. All I've got to do is pay the extra sunnah or read a bit of Quran. But what if you were the kind of Muslim where in the last 20 years you haven't prayed, you haven't fasted, you've been drinking, you've been smoking? Because I hear this a lot when I talk to people. They say, when I get to 50, I'm going to sort myself out. You cannot sort yourself out. No matter how much you try, you cannot switch overnight. It's a long hauling process. Well, that's the same concept they talk about Dajjal. When they say that when Dajjal comes, and Dajjal will very easy, one of the traits of Dajjal is when he sees a Muslim, the click of his finger, you'll become kuffar. He'll convince you. You'll have a harder time with the Muslims who have time to build up their belief over the course of their life. So I have many of these conversations with brothers, and they say, don't worry, when Dajjal comes, we're going to kill him, we're going to sort him out. How are you going to kill him? You're too busy selling drugs. You're too busy drinking. You're too busy going out and messing around. What makes you think you got the strength to face up Dajjal? You're the perfect candidate he wants. He's not even going to try and fight you. He goes, you're already on my side. The deal's done. What are you standing there for looking at me? You're part of my army. So people don't realize it is a long haul to make that change. So for these people, they weren't going to change that quickly. So the Ansar, when they saw this, and actually as human beings, their reaction was, Muhammad Sallallahu, our prophet, is giving the money away to these people, and our swords are still dripping with their blood. Meaning we've just beat them in Makkah. We've just taken them. Okay, it's a saying that our swords are still dripping. What has Muhammad Sallallahu done that he has left us out? He's now, look, we knew this was going to happen, that he was going to favor his people. So these words were quite strong words. The emotion came out because it wasn't necessarily just about the money. It was like, why are you leaving us out? We were with you from the beginning. So Muhammad Sallallahu, while he was, distributing, Sa'd bin Ubadah, he was one of the leaders of the Ansar from Medina. He said, I need to go and tell Muhammad Sallallahu this. So he says, Ya Rasul, O Messenger of Allah, there are things that are being said amongst my people. They feel that they're being treated unfairly. They feel that they don't understand. The Muhajirun got it because they're Meccans. Muhammad Sallallahu is a Meccan. So even they felt uncomfortable thinking, you're only sticking by your own, even though they're Muslims. Forget about the newly converts. We don't understand why they're getting it. What have they done to deserve it? So Muhammad Sallallahu looks at Sa'd bin Ubadah and he says to him, and what do you feel about it? And Sa'd bin Ubadah said the best thing. He goes, I am nothing but of my people. And what that means is they're my people and I feel the same. I need an explanation. I need to understand. So Muhammad Sallallahu says to Sa'd bin Ubadah, gather all of the Ansar in such and such place. Tell them I'm going to come to speak with them. So I'm going to read this hadith, right, about this conversation he has. So after they've gathered, once all the Ansar have come in, and there's loads, right? We're talking about a few thousand of them, okay? Then Sa'd bin Ubadah calls for Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He says, I've gathered all of them for you. Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam allowed some of the Muhajirun in. When I mean Muhajirun, the original Muslims, like people like Abu Bakr Siddiq, Umar bin Khattab, Hazrat Ali. The other al-Muhajirun who tried to come in, he barred them and said, you're not coming in, stay outside. This is a private conversation between me and the Ansar. So the Prophet ﷺ, he says, and listen to this very carefully. He says to them, O people of the Ansar, what is it that you're saying that has been conveyed to me, that Sa'd bin Ubadah has just told me? Something regarding a sense of anger that you feel inside of yourselves. Before I came to you, were you not misguided? Were you not in Jahliyyah? Were you not in Kufr? And then Allah guided you through me. And were you not poor? And then Allah made you rich through me. And were you not the enemies unto one another? Because they had a lot of tribal wars. And then Allah united your hearts and you became brothers to each other. They responded and they said, Allah and His messenger are better, kinder, and more gracious. We appreciate everything that you've done. Then Muhammad said to him, but will you not answer me, O people of the Ansar? And then they said to him, and with their heads down, and what answer should we give you, O Messenger of Allah, when the favor and the grace of what we have been blessed with belong to Allah and His Messenger? They're being very respectful now. They're embarrassed. Then the Prophet ﷺ said this, and this is beautiful. Because really, they could have said many things. So the Prophet said it for them. He said, by Allah, if you wanted to, O Ansar, you could have said the following thing to me, and you would have spoken the truth and not lied. This thing that you said to this thing, you could have said this to me and it would have been the complete truth. You could have said to me, you came to us, O Muhammad, when you were disbelieved by your own people and we believed in you. You were forsaken and we helped you. You were driven out from your homeland and we gave you a home. You were poor and we gave you comfort. O people of the Ansar, you have felt anger inside of yourselves at me for some insignificant worldly things. You're feeling angry because of stupid things. And I'll explain to you why. Things that I used to appease people so that they would enter into the fold of Islam, bribe people so that they would enter the fold of Islam. As for you, I trusted you to your Islam, i.e. your faith, that was no need to bring you closer to Islam. Your Iman was 100% paka. There was nothing else I could do to bring you closer to your Iman. O people of the Ansar, are you not pleased that the people that I have given all of this are going home with sheep and camel, while you are going back to your homes with the messenger of Allah? Right? So when you think about that concept, it's a very powerful concept, and I'll explain to you why. For the one who has the soul of Muhammad in his hand, what you are going back with is better than what they are going back with. And had it not been for the hijrah, the migration from Makkah to Medina, I would have been a person from the Ansar. He's saying to them, because I had to do this hijrah from Makkah to Medina, I'm a muhajir now, right? And the hijrah is a very high status. It's higher than everything else. So he goes, if it wasn't for that, I would be an Ansar. And were the people to travel through a mountain pass that was very difficult and a valley, and while the Ansar were to travel through a valley that was even more difficult than that, I would have traveled through the mountain pass of the Ansar. For me, the Ansar are like the inner garment, which is closer to my soul, and the rest of the people here that you see are like the outer garment. He said, and then he made a dua to Allah, and he said to Allah, and now this is the most important thing. When you have the Prophet ﷺ with you, when any dua that Muhammad ﷺ makes, his dua is guaranteed, right? That's what we say, that we want shifa from Muhammad ﷺ. His duas are guaranteed by Allah. So he makes a dua and he said, oh Allah, grant the Ansar and forgive them. Grant them Jannah and forgive them. Oh Allah, grant Jannah and forgive their children. Oh Allah, grant them Jannah and forgive them their grandchildren, and so forth. Can you imagine the blessing? I understand this. If Muhammad ﷺ, if you were connected to the Ansar, you have already been forgiven. That's how powerful that dua, it goes all the way through. Any dua he makes. So he's saying to them, that sheep will eventually die. That camel will go old and get an ulcer. But you are going away with me, who is the key to heaven. Nobody can enter paradise, not any other single prophet, not even Angel Jibreel, and not even the angels. They guard the gates of heaven. There's only one person that will enter first, and that has to be Muhammad ﷺ with the key, and he is the key. So he's saying, do you not understand? All of this will go. Ask the guys who are here, who are the older generation. Trust me, 50 years feels like nothing. When we look back, we can't even catch up with time. We think that we're not even at that age. So this is the beauty of this relationship, that when you are put up, whenever you are faced up in this dunya, to do with dunya and the akhirah, to do with dunya and Allah, it is all about the psychological balance, what you feel is more important to you. Because ultimately, everything that comes here is a temporary, the material things you have is a temporary thing that ignites a temporary sensation. When you think about you're going to buy a brand new BMW, you get super excited. You know, when you're saving your money, the moment you buy that car and you've driven it for a month, that sensation is all gone. That is all gone. That is how superficial and artificial this is. And yet he's saying whatever you do is going to carry on. That's like that hadith about when Muhammad ﷺ sent that Sahabi, you know, before, when they were coming to the Battle of Hunayn, and he said to that Sahabi, go up to that mountain and keep an eye out that we don't get attacked. And so he went up there, And in the morning, he stayed up all through the whole night. And Muhammad sallallahu got up in the morning, prayed his fajr with the Sahabi, and he said, where is your colleague? Has he come back? They said, we can't see him. So Muhammad sallallahu is praying fajr. And while he is praying, he turns his head while he is praying. And this is a unique condition. He turns his head because he's eager to see that brother come back, the Sahabi. And he sees him coming back. He goes, your brother has returned. And he says to him, so what did you do then? He says, I stayed up on the 2 highest mountain, which is very dangerous to get up to. And I overlooked to make sure nobody would attack us. And he says, and when did you come down? He goes, I only came down for 2 reasons. 1, for salah, and 2, to relieve myself. He says, from this day onward, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it fard upon himself to reward you. Have you ever heard such a thing? Allah has made it fard upon himself to reward you for what you have done. And now Allah has said that whatever sunnah you do, you see in life, you do bad deeds, you do good deeds. So whenever you do bad deeds, your sunnah act counter your bad deeds on the day of judgment. He's saying to this man, you don't have to do any sunnah. You can do it, but you don't have to do any sunnah to counter your bad deed because you're done. You're going in. You've got the highest rank in heaven and you're going straight through. You don't even have to do any other deed to counter your sin, except for the obligation for that one action you've done. So the point being is that we underestimate what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us, to the smallest things to the biggest thing. We don't know. There are times in your life where you will sacrifice things and you think it's not a big deal. But if it's a huge deal for somebody else, you have no idea how many doors Allah ta'ala has opened for you. And you have no idea how many doors of hell he has closed for you. And you have no idea what Allah ta'ala has prevented in terms of evil and bad things in your life, that he's prevented it from happening because of the good deeds that you've done. You live your life, you think, oh, nothing's happened to me. I've been all right. Do you know, if I played the highlight reel of your life, what it would have been had you not done all those good deeds? You could have had a car accident. You could have broken your leg. Your daughter could have had cancer. Your wife could have dropped dead when she was 20. You could have been left with 5 kids. You could have lost your job 6 times. All of this was prevented by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of the deeds that you've done. So don't belittle them. So when you help someone and you think, so that I'm not going to help him again, right? Because he's unappreciative. You have no idea how many things Allah ta'ala has prevented it happening in your life. So these are the lessons that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he teaches us continuously. So this story of the Ansar was like absolutely beautiful. But it wasn't just the fact that these Muslims, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam setting straight the record for the believers and making them really firm in what they're and the way that they are. Look at now the additional things that they do. So when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam so before I kind of get onto the bit about the Hawazin tribe and what happens with them, it wasn't all cozy. There was a lot of disgruntled people, right? So let me explain something to you. The Bedouins that you have, the Bedouins that you get in Arabia are from the desert. They're very moody, they're very grumpy, they're very rude, they got no decor, they got no way of talking to people. So there was instances, and it just shows you the character of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Man, this guy's just taken Makkah. He is the man of Arabia now. He's beaten the Jews. He's beaten, he's got Medina. He's beaten all the small tribes. He's taken Makkah, now he's taken Taif, and he's now beaten the Hawazin tribe. And you got these Bedouins that come up to him. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was wearing this, Sahabi was narrating, Muhammad was wearing this like an armor, and there was a thread, a hem sticking out. And this Bedouin will walk up to him, and he will grab that hem and tug on it, pull him. And he'll say, oh, Muhammad, where's my fair share? Now, if you did that to a king, right, his hand would be chopped off. His family would be strung up. We behave like that here, don't we? When there's like some special imam that comes along and people look at it wrong, we lynch him, baseball bat him, do what we need to do. We start behaving this way. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he turned around, he says, and he left a mark. He pulled him so hard, he left a mark on his shoulder. And Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam just smiled at him and he said, give him something. That was you and me. We just slap him up, call the friends, beat him up, go back down to his house and take his stereo as well. Top it up. This is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. the way he reacted. Then there was a point when the Bedouins, they ambushed him. They rushed him. Muhammad was on his camel and they rushed him and said, give us the booty, share it out. Because what happened? And I'll tell you why. So remember Muhammad when he won the war with the Hawazin, there were two things that happened. He won the war with the Hawazin and he told the Sahabi, collect all the booty and leave it to the side and I'll be back. And then he went to Taif. Do you remember? So he went to Taif. Malik ibn Awf, the leader of the enemies of the Hawazin, took a whole massive contingency when they lost and they went to Taif and they locked themselves in their fortress. The Muslims for 15 days could not penetrate or beat them. Okay, they couldn't. So Muhammad said, there's no point fighting them. Let's leave because they're harmless to us and they've pretty much lost. All they've done is lock themselves in the door. What are they going to do? So when Muhammad comes back, it's been about 15, 20 days. He comes back and people are eager and they ambush and they're like, oh, Prophet of Allah, give us the goods, share it out. Now, the distribution of the goods had already been done by this time. And Muhammad said, as many thorns there are on these bushes, if there were camels, do you not think I would have distributed this to you by now? I'm not a miserly man and I don't care for the dunya. I don't have any more. So they were asking and they were greedy for more and more. So a lot of these Bedouins, they were becoming very disgruntled and they were becoming quite moody. One of them even said to him, I don't think Muhammad is being fair. And this would come back to Muhammad and he became upset by this statement. He said, if I cannot be fair, who can be fair? I'm the messenger of Allah. But there was one guy which was very interesting in his particular story. And a lot of you guys will understand why this is kind of key. So there was a man from the Banu Tamim, okay? And he was standing very close to Muhammad when he was distributing. Right? When he was distributing all this. His name was Du al-Khwaisira. Okay? Du al-Khwaisira. So check this guy out. So he's standing there next to Muhammad. Muhammad was distributing, giving people their booty, their distribution, their fair share. And he says to Muhammad, I've been watching you all day. So Muhammad was distributing and he looks at him and he goes, yeah, and what do you think? Like, good, yeah? He goes, I think you've been very unfair. You're not doing the right thing here. And Muhammad looked at him and he says, if the Prophet of Allah cannot be fair, then who can be fair? Because the reason why he said that, not because of high his status, he's saying, I am the most accountable over all of you to Allah. And if I cannot do my job, who's going to do the job? Umar al-Khattab, classic Umar al-Khattab style was, let me take a sword and take his head off. Then Muhammad said to him, don't touch him. This guy will have friends, many of them. And they, when it comes to Islam, they will make your salah look like it's nothing. They will belittle your salah because their salah will be better. It will look like that. They will belittle your fasting because they'll look like they're really into their fasting. But when they recite Quran, that Quran will not go past their throat. When they recite, it will not, meaning that they will not understand any of it. He said they will leave Islam quicker than an arrow that hits a game. It will pierce its body and exit out the other side, that to the point when you inspect that arrow, you will find that there's no blood or even marking. You will have no proof to say that even hit that game. That's how fast they will come in and out of Islam. And amongst them, you will find that there will be a dark man who has, and an indication was like he had a stubbed arm, right? Like his arm, and it was a fat arm. And he will be amongst them. And Muhammad said that when you find them, leave them be, unless they bring trouble to you. And we know that when Hazrat Ali became Khalif, an incident happened with Khalid bin al-Arat. Yeah, he's a Sahabi. His son was traveling on a road with his pregnant wife. And these group of people who are very extreme, so what they do is that they go very extreme into Islam. They find the extremities of Islam. They will take your simple salah and they will take it to the extreme level. They will add things to their prayer, as in like in the way, their spiritual side, that Islam hasn't ordained. You understand? They will take it to another level which Islam does not talk about. They will go to that extreme. This is what Muhammad said. right? Ibn Hajar, the radiallahu anhu, said in his book, his scholar, he said, when you look at these people, they will take their worship to another level that Islam has not talked about. You will not find this practice with the Prophet. You will not find this practice with the Sahabi. They'll be extreme in everything. And you will find that they will kill the Muslims easily for any crime they commit, and they will let off the kafir. They will favor the kafir over the Muslims. So Khalid bin al-Arad's son, when he was traveling, and this is the time of Hazrat Ali when he was Khalid, so way after Muhammad had passed away, 40 years right after that, when he was traveling with his pregnant wife, they came to him. And there was a whole political incident between Hazrat Ali and Muawiyah that was going on. But they were very extreme because they would see you as a person that was against Islam or their Islam because you sided with Ali and so forth, Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu. So they asked him some questions and didn't like it, and they killed him. They took his wife and they cut open her stomach and took out the fetus from her stomach and let her die there. So they take the killing to extreme. This is when Hazrat Ali, originally, when he saw these people, he said, leave them to be, right? Don't get involved with them. Until they attack you, until they become an internal problem to the state, then we have to deal with them. And that's when Hazrat Ali declared war on them and fought them. These people became the Khawarij. This was the birth of the Khawarij. And the Khawarij is what, if you don't understand this term, this is what we call today, that people say, what we see is ISIS, in Syria, and all these, the guys who go to the very extreme. So we know once on the news, they took a Muslim pilot and they burnt him alive. Burning anyone is haram, even an enemy, even in torture. You cannot touch him, you cannot burn anyone, but they take it to the extreme. They take it to extreme. They will make any Muslim a kafir like that. And they exist amongst you. So Muhammad ordered us, be very careful and stay away from them until they become a problem for you internally because of their extremity. So in the life of Muhammad, many little different things begin to happen and they begin to start. You understand? And this was the beginning of all of this. And when Hazrat Ali did actually go and find them, he actually, because Muhammad said that there will be a dark man, a black man with them, he said, go find this man. And they actually found him. So Muhammad was bang on. He was absolutely correct about his prediction that there was going to be a man like that. So there was a lot of disgruntled, but it just shows you that Muhammad, this was the only one that Muhammad became angry about and became very cautious about this individual. But generally, all these Bedouins, they're pulling at him. And yet Muhammad can keep this love and affection. You know why? He understands that all of these people are new to Islam. That when you start off giving them gifts, and therefore in Islam, this is why the ruling says, Muhammad bribed them to come into Islam to open their hearts. Do the same. When you see your neighbors, a non-Muslim, gift them. You understand? So you have a choice. You gift, and we have this concept, gift your Muslims first and your non-Muslims not. The non-Muslims come first, then the Muslims. With the intention that you're trying to invite them. Because they see you as Muslims, you should give. So, like on Eid, we make some kheer or whatever, and we go around to all our other families, go give to the non-Muslims. Let them understand who you are, what you're about. This is how Muslim invited them. And many of them became very strong Muslims after this point. So a lot of these events that occurred. And then so the Hawazin tribe, so when they beat the Hawazin tribe, many of the delegates, they actually became Muslim. And they came to Muhammad after Muhammad distributed women, the children, the stock, everything. And they said to Muhammad, O Messenger of Allah, you are the man, you are the Messenger of God. We thank you for inviting us to Islam. We see the truth, we see the haqq. Would you not be so kind to return our goods? This is what Muhammad said. He said to them, why do you think I waited 15 days? Why do you think that when I got the booty, that I didn't distribute it? I went to Taif first and then came back to give you the chance to come to me so I can return this to you. But it's too late. I've already distributed it. You didn't come to me. So then Muhammad said to them, what do you desire more? Do you desire your livestock or your families? Because both have been given away. They said, Ya Rasul, how can you think like that? do you think that we'll give up our honor over our wealth? We want our honor. So the first thing Muhammad said, and I remember when the booty is collected, 1/5 is always the Prophet and his family. 1/5. He said, everything I own from this is yours. You can have it. You take that. He says, and if you want your family back, tomorrow when I pray tomorrow when I pray the noon prayer Zuhr with the Sahabi who've got all of this now, I want you to enter into the prayer area and I want you to ask me and say, O Prophet of Allah, will you intercede for us and return our goods? And then I will ask the same to the Sahabi and let's see what happens. So Zuhr time, he prays, he walks in, they walk in and they say, O Messenger of Allah, will you intercede for us and return our family to us? And in front of everyone, Muhammad said, everything that I have of yours, you can take it back. The Muslims who are the strongest, Muhammad, all the Sahabi, the Ansar didn't have anything, right? But the Muhajirun all got up and said, you can have everything back. All you can have it. Except for when they ask people like Abu Sufyan, do you want to return it? No. Hisham bin Unais, do you want to return it? No. I'm not returning it. Safwan bin Umayyad, no. Because because they're just new Muslims. Whereas the others, they knew if the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is going to give it, we want to follow our Prophet. And they were thinking more of the dunya. Isn't that us today? Muhammad ﷺ teaches us everything, right? So there's a fard we have to do. If you don't do it, you go to hell. Yeah, you got to pay for that price, for that obligation. Sunnah, highly recommended. If you do this, Allah give you additional reward. If you don't do it, there's no sin on you. We don't even fulfill the obligation. We know our Prophet does this. We shout and scream at the top of our voice when it's his birthday and we celebrate it, Yet when it comes down to following his obligation, fast, do this, do that. No, what's that? We ignore it. We turn our faces away from Muhammad ﷺ. Say these Sahabi, when they see Muhammad ﷺ do it, they want to follow everything he done. They didn't have to. It was their right. That's why Muhammad ﷺ, I can't force them to give it back. That booty is their right. And if they give it, because they give it for the bottom of their heart and that sadaqah that they give and the reward is huge for them. That's why the others, they didn't want to give it. So they started to give this back. So then what does Muhammad ﷺ do? He says to the others, if you give their family back, I will give you 6 times that value on the next booty run. The next war we have, I will give you 6 times that value. And they all rushed to him to give it. He said, there's too many of you, go back to your camps and send a representative. And so eventually many of them will return back to their family. And one of them was the most beautiful story, was the foster sister of Muhammad ﷺ. So if you remember, the foster mother of Muhammad ﷺ, right? I can't remember her name now, something Sadia. Halima bin Sadia, yeah. So this was the daughter of Halima bin Sadia. She got arrested and pulled in as distribution. And she said, I'm telling you, I am the foster sister of the Prophet Muhammad. They said, we don't believe you. Everybody will say anything they want. But they didn't want to take the chance. So they took her to see Muhammad ﷺ. Now it's been many years. What this means is Muhammad, when he was a child, Muhammad ﷺ's mother, what they do is, you're very rich, you have a nanny. But their way of doing a nanny is that they give the children, when they're very little, away to foster mothers. They're Bedouin women who live out in the desert. And they always think that's a good idea, because if you send your children there, they get the good fresh air, they don't get the corruption of and the pollution of the cities. They get trained, they get taught how to speak the pure Arabic language, they get taught how to graze animals, so they get taught real good techniques of how to live a life, to make you a man and so forth. So Muhammad ﷺ was sent alongside his uncle Abu Hamza. So that's why Abu Hamza was his chacha, right? Was his uncle, but they became foster brothers. You know why? Because the mother Halima bin Sadia, who took them, she breastfed both of them, and then you become foster brothers, right? So he grew up with them, and that was the first time when he was a child, they began to see miracles of this kid, miracles of this young boy who wasn't even a prophet at the time, the things that he could do. So when this girl walks in, she says, I'm your foster sister. He hasn't seen her since they were like 4 or 5 years old. And he says to her, how can you prove it? And she says to him, do you remember when I carried you on my hip because you were being naughty? You bit me. And then she showed him the bite mark. And he said, that's it. Immediately, Muhammad took off his cloak. He laid it down. He said, sit down. He said, if you stay with me, you'll be honored, you'll be respected, you'll be loved. But I'm not going to force you. If you want to go back to your family, you can go back to your family and I will give you gifts. Because she's obviously grown up with her family and her people, she wanted to go back. And so Muhammad gave her 2 slaves, give wealth and everything, and she became Muslim as well. There's different ways regarding whether she became Muslim or not, but one indication that she became Muslim. This is the compassion that Muhammad had for all of these people. Understand? He just wanted to open up his heart to all of them, because compassion is much more softer and much more inviting than aggression. And if you look at many leaders today, right, we take the traits everywhere we go, right? As men, are we we as men, we have different roles. You know, we have a role as a husband, we have a role as a father, we have a role as a leader in our workplace. You have to take the approach that Muhammad would have taken in every one of these capacities. If you're a friend, what kind of friend are you? If you're a son, what kind of son are you? If you're a father, what kind of father are you? Right? If you're a leader, what kind of leader are you? And Muhammad demonstrated in every aspect. And therefore, being generous, being fair, being just pays dividends in the long run with the people that you're with. So this is a really key, you know, that's a really key sort of part of understanding the stories. So, and just the last final one was really about the one of the poets, right? That actually there was one poet by the name of Khab that was really heavily against Muhammad and used to write a lot of hardcore poems against Muhammad. And in the days of Makkah, when Muhammad was really in a difficult situation, very depressed, and these people used to write poetry against him to really defame him, ruin his name. And so he had a brother who became Muslim. And so Khab realized that, look, there's nowhere for me to go. And his brother pleaded with him. He goes, look, Muhammad is not like this. Become Muslim, and he will give you protection, and he will be like this. And he's thinking, how is that possible after everything I've said about him? Can you imagine if you have a friend or a family or relative who's been, just destroying your family name or destroying your name in front of people? Would you have the humility and the humbleness to forgive that person? You won't. You want some revenge. And yet this man, he was told by his brother that go to Muhammad in Medina. Now, by this time, Muhammad went to Medina. And so when he went to Medina, he walked into the mosque and he saw Muhammad, he held his hand and he said to Muhammad, Khab will, he asked for his forgiveness. Would you give it to him? Now, Muhammad didn't recognize him. He didn't recognize him. He said, Khab said he will become Muslim. Would you forgive him, give him protection? And Muhammad said, of course I would. One Sahabi walked in, recognized him, took his sword out, about to kill him. And Muslim said, stop. And then the man said, I'm Khab. And then Muhammad said, then you are forgiven and you are under protection. So the Battle of Hunayn, obviously, is a beautiful event. There's many other rulings regarding this, right? Yeah, there's a whole bunch of rules that came out. And I think there's a lot of lessons. If I was to do this in a lot of detail, it'll probably take me about 5-6 classes. Okay, there's a lot to cover, but I don't want to go into too much of detail. We can cover them in some of our sort of more private sessions. But the main thing is the lessons that you learn from here. So one thing that should be happening now for you guys is that you should be thinking to yourself, the character of Muhammad sallam, what is he like? And you begin to see the nature of this individual. How can you not love and have compassion for Muhammad sallam? We always say Muhammad sallam is, he's beautiful, he's great, his personality, whatever. Yet we know nothing about him. It's these stories that confirm us and solidify what we think we know about him. You understand? The other thing is that you learn is that You wouldn't be human if you didn't feel the way that the Sahabi did. They are the best of mankind, right? They are the best in terms of following Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But they did the same mistakes you and me do today, right? They feel the same weaknesses, they feel the same temptations, they feel the same elements, right, that we all face. And any difference is because they built themselves with a level of iman, they can counter that. We haven't got there. So for you, what this really means is, what I'm trying to tell you is that in order for you to become stronger as Muslims, don't try to focus on stop committing your wrong deeds and improving your bad deeds. This all comes with knowledge. It doesn't come from thin air. When you have knowledge and you have understanding, automatically you become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you're the kind of guy like, I don't get up for Fajr, I'm just going to see if I can do it. It's not a routine. It's not a gym session. It's not a diet, right? Because when you try to do it, yeah, you might do it for about a week, then you'll give it up. What's going to give you the desire and the motivation to do it is what's in your heart. That's the iman that you build up. And that iman comes from knowledge and learning. Anyway, jazakallah khair, inshallah.